Hello everyone. I didn't want to make this video, but things have gotten a lot worse and I think it's finally time more people know about it. But before that starts, I think we should do a quick recap of the previous events. So the YouTuber known as NAXINET, even though that's not how he prefers his name to be pronounced, but I personally think it sounds cooler, made videos for quite a while, of which not many of them gained that much traction, only averaging in a few views here and there. Clearly this ended up getting to them quite a bit, and they eventually started making an FNF mod on real suicides. Now, you may know a few of them, you may not. But one you should definitely know is Technoblade, who, unlike the rest, died of cancer in June 2022. This ended up causing quite a lot of outrage, and his content mostly got hate. And of course the only few amounts of positive reception it did receive were usually from children or other edgelords who tried to use the same content to boost their own popularity. But the wider community mostly disliked this, mostly due to the fact that even people in the FNF community unsurprisingly have human decency. The insane amounts of backlash would eventually lead him to cancelling this mod. At least that's what I would assume it was, unless there was some type of other external force that caused this, such as the risk of being banned or told not to do it by someone that is a friend of him. However, these are only guesses. Now, before making this video, I did ask Nex himself on whether there was any things he wanted corrected in this video. This was due to him claiming it was poorly researched in his original comment on the first one, where he claims the image that I shown was the incorrect one. This, however, does not excuse the fact that he still called the artist a pussy for not wanting to be associated with it. However, apparently this was because he didn't want to be called a tracer. Granted though, if the art was made specifically for the mod, I'm not too sure why on earth they would post it anywhere else and risk him being called one anyways. Especially when he could have easily avoided this by saying it was drawn by an artist who wished to remain anonymous. However, that's been done now and is not exactly something he can go back on. This was only said in the comment on the original video though. When I asked again, he responded by claiming that I accused him of stealing the art, which I never did, and it's something that he never claimed in the original, so my only guess is that it was an honest mistake or he misunderstood something. Now, all of the drama that Nex had gotten himself in somewhat resulted in a lot of other smaller channels attacking him for it, which is very unsurprising. One of the most noteworthy being this channel known as Reyes. Reyes is a channel that was run by a 16-year-old who often made expose videos on smaller channels that are around the same size as them. Nex being an exception, however, due to him growing in size after his controversy, as multiple people, despite disliking the mod, still liked the music production, which I have confirmed by talking to multiple members of his fanbase. Due to this, it led Nex to start claiming that Reyes was only making videos on them in order to gain more views, even pulling out this at one point. Me personally, I believe it's highly unlikely, as they were doing stuff like this for quite a while, and content like this can make anyone upset. Along with that, their channel wasn't exactly monetized and they couldn't really make anything off it, so the motive for that wasn't really clear, other than possibly attention seeking the same way Nex is. Which leads me to believe that the only reason why he claims they were doing it for views was most likely due to just him being reflective, as not only had he admitted multiple times that the mod was only for attention, and he was upset about the fact that his normal content doesn't get anywhere near as much. To go along with this, most of his aggressive insults towards me were mostly just him complaining about me not getting as many views as subs. Along with that, before cancelling the mod, he did leave this long comment on one video where he even acknowledged the fact that most people who watched his videos didn't like him. Which, despite all of this, when commenting on my video, he still decided to claim it was an act and genuinely did enjoy watching people get mad over it. As you can see, there's some very big differences in between these two comments here. Reyes, for the longest time, was heavily harassed by people, mostly people from NAXINET's fandom, and someone known as Adri, who is possibly in a relationship with Nex, but we're not exactly too sure. It's just a rumor that's been going around, and based off of these weird FNF covers, even if they're not, it looks like someone definitely wants to be. And as a result, they end up showing large amounts of hostility to anyone who dares criticize him, even when they're trying to be nice, which I have tried on multiple occasions. Even when I expressly tell them I don't hate them, a lot of the time they still respond with some of the most low-quality insults you could ever imagine. Due to their motive not actually being having a say in the situation and actually just being to defend Nex, their points or any arguments that they have made usually end up being as weak as Reyes's, as both of them end up being overly aggressive for no real reason. The only difference between the two is one is slightly more morally justified than the other. In fact, even at one point Adri even made a reaction video on my video about Nexit, in which they made multiple comments or aggressions to any points that I had made, despite not having much evidence or being really easy to debunk. So much so to the point where I did debunk every single one of them in my own comment on the video that you can go and read. I even have screenshots of it if it ends up being deleted. Now, most of their criticisms I found to be far too trivial to place in this video, but the most egregious one was when they claimed that the video that literally had an apology written in the title was in fact not an apology, and then got angry at me for saying it was an apology, despite it literally being said that it was an apology. The argument that they used to claim it wasn't an apology was the fact that in the video they said they weren't using the video to justify their actions. However, apologies are not supposed to justify their actions, they're simply just to apologize for them, making this point make zero sense. But I can only assume that it was an honest mistake, by giving them the benefit of the doubt. Another possibility as to why they seem to be so hard to reason with could also be the fact that someone had claimed that they actually had a Discord server in which the entire point is just to essentially be nice to them. However, this claim is completely based on zero evidence and is just something that someone said, so there's a good chance that it could also just be bullshit or heavily misrepresentative. And speaking of false claims, apparently a false claim that was made by the other side, Reyes, was that Adri was supposedly an abusive ex. However, Adri swears that all of their exes have been in safe hands and have never experienced any abuse from their side. And as much as people would like to try and demonize Reyes in their heads due to them being rather aggressive in a lot of their videos, chances are this claim wasn't made up by them themselves and was most likely just given to them through a comment, as most of the information comes from there. Especially when making up false claims about them is pointless, as it's not hard to make them look bad considering how aggressive they are and the fact that they're defending Nex of all people. So I personally believe it just wouldn't make any sense to try and make up any false claims about them. Along with this, multiple troll channels started making edits of Reyes in order to further harass them, including multiple fake accounts pretending to be them showing up, presumably one of them saying the N-word, as there was also a screenshot going around where they claimed that the real Reyes had said it. However, this is extremely out of character and unlikely, and based on a lot of the false information that had been created in order to mess with them, was most likely one of those once again. One of the biggest haters of them being this guy called Yerok, who, despite having a very hard name to pronounce, doesn't exactly mean much to this community, as he is most likely very young based on the quality of his content. He also is a bit homophobic as it seems, but I guess it'd be like that. This back and forth would be going on for a while, and despite the most logical option, simply just to ignore someone who is a 16-year-old making exposed videos and not get overly mad at it, for some unknown reason these people were simply unable to not. In fact, most of them being surprisingly sensitive. And that's where the account Top G Tate comes in. Of course, this isn't the real Andrew Tate, because even the real Andrew Tate would be less disgusting of an individual compared to this man. In fact, he's actually more close to what Andrew Tate's fanbase is than actually him himself, which is indeed a 16-year-old kid, at least according to himself. And now knowing that he's 16, it puts a lot of the things he says into a much more cringy light. Supposedly, Reyes made an exposed video on him of some kind, gaining info from an anonymous source who apparently and supposedly made a brand new account to remain anonymous. However, from later events I would assume that is very hard to believe, and there's a good chance this account is actually owned by someone else who was in the drama beforehand who simply dislikes them, along with the anonymous account also being owned by the same individual. Now, this Andrew Tate fan supposedly started doxing people, even having the info to said anonymous source who gave Reyes the info for the video. and at which he proceeded to threaten to leak this info publicly if Reyes did not hand over their address, which is, well, not to mention illegal, but also a very heavy escalation of low-quality internet drama. And while watching this all happen, I came to the conclusion that the anonymous account was actually a fake account trying to trick Reyes into giving up their info, as it is very unlikely that anyone would ever suggest that a 16-year-old give up their info to save themselves, and that's why I simply asked them to simply just say that. Say, hey, don't give up your info just to save mine. Giving him more info would probably be a terrible idea, obviously. At this line of questioning, the account ended up going completely silent, and along with the fact they even used emojis during what was supposedly a serious situation, I came to the conclusion that it was most likely a fake account along with Reyes too. At which the Andrew Tate fan decided to go to bed. This wouldn't be the end though, however it would be for a little while, up until eventually Program Lover, who also despises Reyes simply for low-quality exposed videos due to being overly sensitive, posted a video in which they had supposedly found Reyes' parents and decided to message them about their low-quality YouTube channel, which, unlike some people, Reyes did not want. Program apparently, according to Reyes, decided to unsend the message. However, there's no concrete proof of that from what I know. This is when the YouTuber Byte System and Mark show up. Mark had supposedly been in this for a while, going back and forth with Reyes along with multiple other people over, once again, trivial internet drama that no one really cares that much about. But eventually there was a link sent to them that ended up doxing Reyes. And despite him criticizing Reyes for supposedly sharing something that led to pornographic material, decided to then share a dox on his channel, which is not even arguably worse. No matter how much you dislike someone, doxing them is never the answer, and overall it just makes you look like a pathetic little bitch who's unable to prove anything anyone says wrong, so you have to resort to essentially saying, haha, I know where you live. Along with even supposedly calling Reyes, which is backed up by the video that he made, where he claims that he was worried that Reyes now has his number. Clearly assuming that Reyes was most likely going to try and use this information to dox him, which kind of goes to show he genuinely believes that stuff like this is even on the table in an online dispute. Byte System, on the other hand, decided to claim that he would be the one to send that message Program was originally going to. However, he claimed that he wouldn't if their channel was handed over, along with the Tate guy. And apparently said channel was handed over to him, along with him presumably using information from it to also hack into their Discord account. And by hacking, they just mean logging into the email and probably resetting the password. Upon getting this account, he decided to dox Reyes, send the message anyways, among many other things, which is very, well, just dick move-ish. Uploading multiple cringy memes that essentially all focus around him saying, look how cool I am guys, I'm so epic. Along with getting the profile picture completely off-center despite it being literally a fucking circle. Not to mention how low quality the image is, almost as if he's put it in a microwave and left it in there for 5 minutes. In fact, I even commented about it, only for him to attempt to try and move the logo into the correct angle, only to then move it too far to the other side. At which I started uncontrollably laughing for a while at this. The fact that he tried to fix it and messed it up twice just kept getting to me somehow. It was one of the funniest takeovers I think I had ever seen. Along with using a banner so terrible and poorly put together to the point where I can literally speedrun making it. In fact, I will. Watch this. This comes as no surprise though, as most of the screenshots, especially with the method that the account was obtained, kind of goes to show that the person who is pretending to be this big hacker-like figure is actually just a child with an iPhone. As you can see from this stream and this screenshot here, the user indeed is just on a mobile phone doing all of this. And along with that, he speaks in complete broken English quite frequently, such as Byte System does not apologize, where he talks in the third person, or when he says this amazing quote, "Remember that time when Reyes that I was weak? Grinning emoji, grinning emoji, grinning emoji." And what about the aforementioned stream, however? Well, it was like 2 seconds long, and all it was him rubbing his phone into his clothing or something. Because I guess he doesn't know how to use an editing software, or just make a video that's pitch black or something. Despite him being this incompetent, however, even people like Tate came out in support of this, with their cringy gotcha life bobblehead looking OC saying El Bozo, despite the fact that in a previous video they claimed they weren't on board with doxing. In fact, even NAXINET said the same thing. Along with things like that coming out, however, videos from the other side heavily degrading Byte System or just generally being heavily insulting to him also started coming out from Reyes' fans. Which supports what I originally said, being that even if Reyes stopped, it wouldn't end up ending as someone else would just pick up the pace. This crappy internet drama is most likely doomed to rage on forever, especially after events like this where people have started resorting to doxing to try and shut up the other one, which ultimately just makes them look more guilty, which just causes this effect in which trying to hide or censor the information simply makes people look for it more. Personally, I think the best way this situation can go is if both sides simply just quit and everyone just goes back to making normal videos. But let's be honest here, we all know it's not going to happen. In fact, there's a good chance it could end up getting even worse. Me personally, I would like to say I don't want any part in it, but at the same time I feel like more people need to know about it. The message I would like to give, I guess, is don't dox 16-year-olds because they're mean to you. I mean, I think that's a message that anyone could agree with. It's as unproblematic as saying I dislike Hitler. And based off the colors of Byte System's logo and his new bio he's added here, I get the feeling he's the type of person to find the sentence I dislike Hitler pretty problematic. I am Adolf Hitler!